My wife's double life destroyed everything I believed. Secret messages, affairs, and betrayal cut deep. This is the story of love, heartbreak, and how I rebuilt my life after trust was shattered. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. That way you'll never miss the next one. Let's jump right in. I met my fiancée 3 years ago. From the very first moment, everything felt magical. She laughed at my jokes, remembered the tiniest details about me, and had a way of making me feel like the most important person in the world. Friends and family admired us, and I felt like I had finally found someone I could rely on completely. We moved in together within a year. Every morning, I'd make coffee while my fiancé got ready for work. Evenings were spent cooking together or lying on the couch watching movies, our hands intertwined, hearts sinking. I often imagined a future with her, our wedding, a house filled with laughter, little traditions we'd create. Life felt full of promise. Her family welcomed me warmly. Her parents treated me like their own, teasing and laughing with me during dinners. Her younger brother was playful, sometimes mocking me, but I secretly loved how included I felt. For the first time, I truly believed I belonged somewhere, and that somewhere was with her. For months, everything was perfect. Every morning, I'd wake up to her smile. Every night, we'd talk about dreams, work, and silly things that happened during the day. I thought I knew her completely, trusted her with every piece of my heart. But little did I know, the illusion of perfection was merely the calm before a storm I couldn't have predicted. Slowly, subtle changes started creeping in. Small things that seemed insignificant at first began to nag at the back of my mind. My fiancé's phone was no longer casually left on the table. It was always face down, notifications hidden. She started spending longer hours at work, often giving vague excuses when I asked about her day. Smiles became rarer, laughter less frequent, and sometimes she avoided eye contact entirely. One evening, I noticed her expression change when a message buzzed. She quickly hid her phone under a cushion, pretending nothing had happened. My chest tightened. I wanted to trust her, but a small voice whispered, "Something's not right." I tried to brush off the unease. Maybe she's stressed, I told myself. Maybe it's nothing serious. But each passing day, the feeling grew stronger, like a shadow stretching across a sunny room. The warmth we once shared was slowly being replaced by a chill I couldn't explain. Even at home, I began noticing tiny inconsistencies, missed calls she didn't tell me about, hurried exits to run errands, and moments when her gaze seemed distant, lost in thoughts I wasn't part of. I asked questions cautiously, trying not to sound accusatory, but her answers felt rehearsed, almost defensive. Despite the creeping anxiety, I held on to hope. I told myself I might be overthinking, that the woman I loved wasn't capable of hurting me. Yet deep down, a seed of doubt had already been planted, and little did I know, it was only the beginning of a betrayal that would shatter everything I thought I knew about love and trust. Over the next few weeks, the small signs I had noticed became impossible to ignore. Late-night texts, hurried phone calls, and mysterious friends she never mentioned by name started forming a pattern. Her laughter, once genuine and carefree, now sounded rehearsed, almost guilty when she spoke over the phone. One evening, while pretending to scroll through my own phone, I kept an eye on her. The soft glow of her screen caught my attention. I hated myself for feeling this way, for not trusting her completely, but something told me I had to know the truth. I saw snippets of messages from a man named Alex, sweet, intimate words that made my stomach drop. I wish he didn't exist. Can't wait to see you tonight. When will you finally tell him? Each line felt like a dagger. The life I had imagined, the plans for our wedding, our home, our future, suddenly seemed like a fragile illusion. Every hug, every laugh, every whispered "I love you" now felt like it might have been a mask. I began observing her more closely. The patterns became clearer. She would be extra careful when she received notifications. Her stories of where she had been didn't always add up, and she seemed to be constantly thinking about something or someone else. One evening, I tried to confront the gnawing feeling. "Are you hiding something from me?" I asked cautiously. She laughed nervously, avoiding my gaze. "No, nothing like that," she said, but her eyes told a different story, and my heart sank further. The seed of suspicion had firmly taken root, and the trust we had built over years now felt fragile like glass teetering on the edge of a table. I knew deep down that this unease would not disappear on its own. It demanded answers, and soon. The next evening, I could no longer ignore the gnawing feeling of betrayal. I needed answers, no matter how much it would hurt. As she stepped out to get something from the kitchen, her phone was left unattended on the couch. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I unlocked it carefully, hesitating with each swipe. And then there it was. Messages. Dozens of them. From Alex. Sweet, intimate messages, secret plans, and even photos that confirmed my worst fears. Every word hit like a hammer. "I can't stop thinking about you. I wish I were with you instead. He doesn't know, does he?" My chest tightened. I felt a sickening mixture of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. Months of what I had believed to be love suddenly felt like a carefully constructed illusion. When she returned, I confronted her directly, my voice shaking but firm. "Who is Alex?" She froze, her face paling. It's complicated," she whispered. I shoved the phone toward her. "Complicated? You've been hiding someone behind my back while planning a life with me?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I never meant for it to happen this way," she said. It just did." I laughed bitterly, a hollow, broken sound. "Did? Months of secret meetings, late-night texts, and lies? This is your just happened?" She tried to explain, stammering, begging for understanding, but each word only made the chasm between us grow wider. Every memory of our laughter, our whispered "I love yous," our dreams for the future now felt poisoned. Trust, once solid, now lay shattered like glass on the floor. For hours we sat in silence, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on both of us. Every plan, every promise, every moment of intimacy felt tainted. I realized that the life I had imagined with my fiancé was no longer real. It was a fragile illusion, now broken beyond repair. That night the apartment felt suffocating. Every corner reminded me of moments we had shared, our first movie night, lazy Sunday mornings, whispered promises, but now they all seemed mockery. I couldn't stay silent anymore. We argued for hours. Every word I spoke cut deeper than the last. "Do you understand what you've done? You've built a life with me while hiding him, while deceiving me every single day." My voice cracked, rage and heartbreak intertwining. She cried, sobbing uncontrollably, apologizing and begging for forgiveness. "I never wanted it to happen this way. I love you, I swear." But love alone couldn't erase months of betrayal. I remembered every smile she had given me, every tender touch, every plan for the future, and now I could no longer recognize the woman I loved. "I can't believe this," I whispered harshly. "All of our dreams, all the promises, were they ever real for you?" She tried to reach for my hand, but I recoiled. "Don't touch me," I said firmly. "I need space. I need to breathe." I packed a small bag that night, my hands shaking as I folded the clothes I had carefully chosen for our imagined weekend getaway. Leaving felt surreal. The home we had shared, the life we had built together, was now just a memory. Walking out into the cold night, I felt a mix of relief and emptiness. Relief that I was free from the constant weight of deception. Emptiness for the love I had lost. I realized then that sometimes leaving was the only way to protect your heart from complete destruction. For the first time, I accepted the fact that some wounds could never fully heal. Betrayal had a way of marking you forever, changing how you saw love, trust, and even yourself. And as I disappeared into the night, I promised myself that I would survive, no matter how shattered I felt. The next few days felt surreal. I stayed with a close friend, sleeping in a room that wasn't mine, surrounded by unfamiliar smells and sounds. Each memory of her in the apartment twisted like a knife in my chest. The way she used to hum while making coffee, the way her hair smelled after a shower, the laughter that once filled the rooms now hauntingly absent. Work became mechanical. I went through the motions, designing, drafting, attending meetings, but my mind was elsewhere. Friends noticed my distracted gaze, the forced smiles that never reached my eyes. They asked if I was okay, and I lied. How could I explain that the woman I loved had betrayed me so completely? She tried reaching out, texts, calls, even emails. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way. Please talk to me." Each message felt like salt on an open wound. My chest tightened whenever I saw her name pop up on my phone. I wanted to ignore it completely, but a small part of me still longed for answers, for closure, for the warmth that was now gone. Nights were the hardest. Alone in my temporary room, the silence pressed down on me. Memories replayed relentlessly. Our first kiss, the plans for a future we would never have, the trust I had given her so freely. Every recollection now came with the sting of betrayal. Friends tried to distract me. We went out, played sports, watched movies, but no laughter was genuine. I was physically present, but mentally trapped in a spiral of grief, anger, and confusion. I realized that betrayal doesn't just hurt the heart, it rewires the way you see the world, the people you trusted, and even yourself. I started journaling, pouring thoughts onto paper to make sense of the chaos inside. Writing became my therapy. Slowly, I began to see that survival required more than tears and anger. It required reclaiming myself. The man who had trusted blindly had to rise again, wiser, stronger, and more cautious. Some nights I allowed myself to cry. Some nights I let the silence embrace me. And in those moments I understood that healing would take time, but it would come, one day at a time. Weeks passed, and the raw pain of betrayal slowly gave way to a quiet reflection. I realized that the world hadn't ended, though it had felt like it. Acceptance wasn't about forgiving her. It wasn't about rekindling what we once had. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity, and my peace. I started therapy, speaking openly about the heartbreak, the anger, and the disappointment. Each session helped me untangle the knots of emotion that had wrapped around my heart. Writing in my journal became a nightly ritual, a place where I could be completely honest with myself. I documented memories, feelings, and slowly, small victories. The first morning I woke up without a pang of grief, the first time I laughed genuinely with a friend. I rebuilt routines. Morning coffee no longer had her absence pressing down. It became a small ritual of my independence. I threw myself into work with a new intensity, designing, creating, and pushing myself professionally. Friends became a lifeline. Weekends were filled with hikes, late-night talks, and shared meals. Slowly I remembered what it felt like to be whole on my own. Trust, once broken, isn't easy to restore, but I noticed it returning in small doses. trust in myself, trust in my judgment, trust in my ability to love and be loved without losing my sense of self. I realized that the betrayal had reshaped me, not defeated me. Some nights, memories still haunted me, the soft laugh, the whispered promises, but they no longer had the power to consume me. They were reminders, yes, of pain and loss, but also of resilience. I learned that survival doesn't require revenge or reconciliation. It requires courage to move forward despite the scars. And in that slow rebuilding, I discovered a quiet strength. Life felt possible again. And though I carried the mark of what had happened, I also carried the lesson that self-respect, boundaries, and the ability to let go were far more valuable than any fleeting love that demanded deception. Months passed. Life had begun to settle into a rhythm again, and I felt a cautious sense of normalcy. The evenings were no longer weighed down by memories, and mornings began with a lighter heart. Yet there was always that quiet corner in my mind where I wondered if she had truly learned from her mistakes. One rainy afternoon, I ducked into a small cafe to escape the downpour. The scent of coffee and the gentle hum of conversations provided a comforting backdrop. As I shook off my wet coat and glanced around for a seat, my eyes froze. She was there, my fiancée, my wife, my past love. Sitting alone at a corner table, wrapped in a worn scarf, her hands cupped around a steaming mug of coffee. She looked different, tired, thoughtful, older somehow, but undeniably real. Time seemed to pause. The world around us blurred, leaving only the two of us in that suspended moment. I hesitated, my instincts screaming to turn away, yet a part of me was drawn forward. Her eyes met mine, wide and uncertain. "She ended it," she whispered, her voice barely carrying above the murmur of the cafe. "I left him. I lost myself. But I can't undo the hurt I caused you." I studied her face. There was no arrogance, no entitlement, only regret. Acceptance, not anger, coursed through me. "We can't go back," I said quietly. "Love isn't enough after trust is broken." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't speak further. I took a seat across from her, not to rekindle, not to forgive, but to acknowledge the truth that had settled between us. Silence became our conversation, a mutual understanding that some things, once broken, could not be mended. For the first time I felt a weight lift, a recognition that I had survived, that I had grown stronger. She had her lesson, I had mine, and though the chapter of us had closed, it closed with a quiet dignity rather than chaos. We parted that day without promises or lingering questions. Life was moving forward, and we were moving with it, separately, yet changed forever by the love and betrayal we had shared. The days after our cafe encounter felt different. The rain had washed away more than the streets. It had cleared the fog that lingered in my mind. I walked through my apartment, once haunted by her presence, and felt an unfamiliar calm. Each corner no longer whispered reminders of her laughter or our arguments. They simply existed as spaces where memories once were. Work became my sanctuary. I poured myself into projects with renewed focus, sketching designs and plans that demanded my full attention. Friends became a lifeline. Weekends were filled with hikes, late-night talks, and shared meals. Slowly I remembered what it felt like to be independent. She reached out occasionally, sending messages of apology or reflection. Each one was met with careful consideration, a balance of empathy and self-protection. I didn't respond immediately, letting her words settle into understanding rather than temptation. It was not about vengeance, nor was it about reopening wounds. It was about acknowledging the past without being controlled by it. Months turned into seasons. Life moved steadily forward, and I found comfort in routine and growth. The weight of betrayal had transformed into lessons. I learned that love could be profound, yet flawed, that people could hurt those they claimed to cherish, and that healing required patience, honesty, and self-respect. One evening, standing on my apartment rooftop, I gazed at the city lights stretching endlessly before me. The skyline, once a backdrop to heartache, now mirrored possibility. The wind brushed against my face as I whispered quietly to myself, "I survived." And for the first time in a long while, the words carried a deep, unshakable truth. I realized that closure wasn't about reconciliation. It wasn't about regaining what was lost. It was about reclaiming oneself. The chapter with my fiancée, my wife, had ended, but in its ending lay the beginning of my own story, a story of resilience, clarity, and the courage to embrace the future unburdened by the mistakes of the past. Life continued, not perfectly, but authentically. I discovered that true freedom comes from not revenge or lingering resentment, but from self-acceptance and the willingness to move forward. The city below hummed with life, and I was ready to meet it fully, eyes open, heart guarded, but hopeful. For the first time, I understood. Betrayal can break hearts, but it can also build strength. And in surviving it, I found the power to define my own happiness. That's the end of today's story. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. More unbelievable stories are coming soon. See you next time.